Harry's Wife, Part 101.68. Narcissistic Sociopath? Hello, I'm H.G. Tudor. The funeral and subsequent events provided us with a wealth of material about Harry's wife, and hard on the heels of all of that, undoubtedly would be with Charles's blessing, that the forthcoming book from Valentine Low is being serialized in the Times. Here, there is an extract entitled Harry's Wife and the Sussex Survivors Club. We were played. Put upon Palace aides insist they tried to help the Duke and Duchess and handled a string of PR disasters, but the couple ditched them anyway, reveals Valentine Low in a further extract from his book. It is normally a standard part of a royal tour, the moment when the royals venture to the back of the plane where the media sit to say hello and have a chat. But the tour of the South Pacific by the Duke and Duchess of Sussex in 2018 was different. It had started with a bang, with the announcement that Harry's wife was pregnant, and the couple had proved extremely popular in Australia, New Zealand, Fiji, and Tonga. Nevertheless, Harry had looked out of sorts. His relations with the media pack had been prickly and strained. Where Harry's wife smiled, always putting on her best face whenever she was on show, facade management, Harry glowered. On the 5-hour flight back from Tonga to Sydney, his press handlers promised that he would come and thank the media for being there. It was only after the plane had landed that the couple finally appeared. I remember the scene well. Harry looked like a sulky teenager. Harry's wife stood behind him, smiling benignly. Her only contribution was a comment about how much everyone must be looking forward to Sunday lunch at home. The Duchess of Industrial Beige in action there. Harry sounded rushed, as if he couldn't wait to get back into the first-class cabin. "Thanks for coming," he said, "even though you weren't invited." If I recall correctly, this is something Tom Bower picked out as well in his book Revenge. This was spectacularly rude and incorrect. The media had been invited to cover the tour. Later, Harry's staff told him how badly his remarks had gone down. He replied, "Well, you shouldn't have made me do it." Harry's petulant behaviour revealed much about the couple's deteriorating relationship with their own staff. So bad did things become that Harry and Harry's wife's team would later refer to themselves as the Sussex Survivors Club, Challenge Fuel. The core members were Sam Cohen, who the Queen had personally asked to step in as a private secretary and who worked for the couple from after their wedding until the end of their South Africa tour in September 2019. Sarah Latham, the former Freud's PR managing partner, hired in 2019 to be in charge of communications, and Assistant Press Secretary Marnie Gaffney. Sources say the team came up with a damning epithet for Harry's wife, a narcissistic sociopath. They also reportedly said on repeated occasions, "We were played." Now, this isn't just one person, it's a number of people who all report the same experience at the hands of the Sussexes. Her as a consequence of her narcissism and the way that she behaves, and also as a consequence of the way that she's affected Prince Harry, causing a diminution in his emotional empathy towards other people, resulting in him, of course, behaving in the way that he has done so, which consequently causes him to have his narcissistic traits come to the fore. This, of course, makes for an unpleasant experience for those that are working with them. Before we go any further into the extract, let us consider that title that has been granted of Narcissistic Sociopath. This is a very strong observation for them to have made, and, of course, is based upon what? The evidence, the way that they have been treated. Now, they may not have any experience of dealing with narcissists or sociopaths, and they may well have come up with that, not as experts, but purely as lay people on the receiving end of the behaviours. It might be, of course, that some of them have had experience of that nature. After all, given the fact that they're PR people, they undoubtedly will have dealt with people of a similar ilk and be able to recognise the behaviours. And, who knows, they may even have consulted professionals who had told them about such behaviour. It's quite clear that Harry's wife is a narcissist. I've explained in detail, in parts passing, which is then reinforced by her various behaviours, that she operates with a rampant sense of entitlement. She exhibits no emotional empathy for those around her, although does function with cognitive empathy. She shows a lack of accountability for her behaviours. It's always somebody else's fault. She shows grandiosity in the way that she shows off, the way that she fails to read the room, the way that she thinks that she's the Empress of Woke and the best at everything. There's magical thinking exhibited. She demonstrates haughty behaviours, being arrogant, dismissive, has a reputation for being difficult. We see lots of the different types of narcissistic manipulations that exist, an absence of boundary recognition, and, of course, she demonstrates various aspects of the narcissistic dynamic, which I've spoken about on many occasions. So she hits all of the relevant fields, time and time again. She's preoccupied with success. She has an exaggerated view of what she is. She needs to assert control. She requires fuel. She seeks out those character traits and residual benefits, and she does so subconsciously. But is she a sociopath? I've noted in the comments on a number of my videos that people have reached this conclusion, but she's not. The issue there is that sociopaths are far more impulsive and hot-headed in their responses than she is. She, of course, maintains a facade a lot of the time. We don't fully know what goes on behind closed doors, of course, and we have seen some cracks in the facade where there's been death stares, where we've seen the cold shoulders. But there hasn't been public meltdowns where she's gone off it in full view of the cameras. Sociopaths simply don't care, and they don't try to hide it. People are exploited in a much more knee-jerk manner. That doesn't accord with what she is. They're much more erratic. And whilst, of course, we have the repeated gas through collateral consequences, she operates a lot of the time with a facade. Indeed, she gives the impression to many people that she's cold and calculating, although actually she's not calculating. Sociopaths are far more emotional in the responses. You'll see often where you have that glazed look, where we have a 404 moment from her. They're also not as preoccupied with image as she is, as a narcissist is, and of course they don't need fuel. They tend to act in a more lonesome manner than she does. And therefore, whilst it's understandable that people would think that she's a sociopath, she doesn't accord with those aspects of the antisocial aspects of the relevant diagnosis. Narcissist, most definitely. However, it's understandable rather that the people who worked with her would reach this conclusion, and the fact is, it is not flattering in the slightest. Indeed, it's stigmatic, and should Harry's wife be aware of this label, and undoubtedly she will because she does read the press or it's brought to her attention, this will amount to challenge fuel. But what is interesting is it's yet more evidence of her poor behaviours resulting in people reaching such a conclusion. Let us continue with the article. Despite being aware of tension in the air, none of the media on the plane realised quite what was going on behind the scenes on that South Pacific tour. One key incident that sheds light on the relationship between Harry's wife and her closest aides occurred in Fiji, when Harry and Harry's wife attended a state dinner hosted by President Giogi Conrote, to which the Duchess wore an eye-catching pair of chandelier diamond earrings. Kensington Palace told the press they had been loaned, but refused to say from whom. The reason for this reticence would not become apparent until more than 2 years later. The earrings had been given to the Duchess as a wedding present by the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, Mohammed bin Salman. On October the 2nd, shortly before the start of the tour, the journalist and dissident Jamal Khashoggi was murdered in the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. The event became a major news story, with accusations that the Crown Prince had personally ordered the killing. The idea that Harry's wife would then, at a state occasion, wear earrings given to her by a man accused of having blood on his hands was surprising to say the very least. This again, of course, was also confirmed by Tom Bower in Revenge, and demonstrates an absence of emotional empathy, a sense of entitlement, self-absorption, and an absence of accountability. Harry's wife's staff were bemused that she should wear them. The Kensington Palace briefing that the earrings were loaned was misleading, but who was responsible? Cohen told colleagues at the time that the earrings had been borrowed from the jeweller Chopard. It was not true. 3 weeks later, Harry's wife gave the earrings a second outing at Buckingham Palace at a 70th birthday party for Charles, then Prince of Wales. At that time, Cohen still appeared to be under the impression that they had been loaned by Chopard. However, others knew the truth. When they had first appeared in the media after the Fiji dinner, staff in London responsible for registering details of all royal gifts had recognised them and alerted Kensington Palace. Demonstrates that they're trying to help. A source said, "We made a decision not to confront Harry's wife and Harry on it out of fear for what their reaction would be." This, of course, is a common response from the victims of a narcissist, that you fear confronting the individual for fear of what will actually then happen when you point something out that they don't like. After the Duchess wore the earrings for a second time, an aide decided to take it up with Harry. He is said to have looked shocked that people knew where the earrings came from, although the Sussex's lawyers deny he was ever questioned about their provenance. In February 2021, Harry's wife's lawyers, Schillings, said, "At no stage did the Duchess tell staff that the earrings were borrowed from a jeweller, as this would have been untrue, and therefore any suggestion that she encouraged them to lie to the media is baseless." 2 days later, Schillings said, "The Duchess is certain that she never said the earrings were borrowed from a jeweller. It is possible she said the earrings were borrowed, which is correct, as presents from heads of state to the royal family are gifts to Her Majesty the Queen, who can then choose to lend them out to members of the family. But that is not convincing. If the earrings were loaned by the Queen, staff would have said so, and no one in normal conversation would ever have referred to them as being loaned. They were a wedding gift for Harry's wife." Harry's wife's lawyers also argued that she had no idea about Sheikh Mohammed's involvement in Khashoggi's murder, nullification of threat to control by proxy. However, Harry's wife once told a gathering for International Women's Day that she read The Economist because she sought out journalism that's really covering things that are going to make an impact. Between mid-October and early November 2018, The Economist ran at least 2 articles examining the role of Sheikh Mohammed in Khashoggi's murder. So either she read about it and therefore was fixed with knowledge, or she lied and doesn't read The Economist. That was not the only time in Fiji when the public narrative did not match what was going on behind the scenes. While the couple were in the capital, Suva, the Duchess paid an official visit to a market to see a project run by UN Women to improve the lot of women working there. She was due to spend 15 minutes meeting women there. However, after just 8 minutes, she was rushed out. The Kensington Palace press office was sent into a panic, with sources initially claiming that she had left early because of security fears. That was later changed to concerns about crowd management issues. Another reason for her premature departure did not emerge until 2 years later, when I was told that it was because Harry's wife was concerned about the presence of the UN Women group, which she had previously worked with. The Duchess had earlier told her staff that she would go only if there was no UN Women branding, a source said. Haughtiness, assertion of control, UN Women group seen as threat to control. Before Harry's wife arrived at the market, staff did their best to reduce the visibility of the group. However, footage of the visit shows Harry's wife surrounded by women in blue tops wearing the UN Women logo. At one point, the Duchess, with a fixed smile, rictus grin, can be seen whispering to a member of staff who grimaces. Harry's wife told an aide, "I can't believe I've been put in this situation." Blame shifting. Moments later, she was ushered out. A staffer remarked at the time, "That's insane. She is nuts." One stallholder said, "It's such a shame. We started preparing for the visit 3 weeks ago, but she left without even saying hello." Haughtiness, absence of emotional empathy. Afterward, the staff member to whom Harry's wife spoke at the market was seen sitting in an official car, tears streaming down her face. Again, the reaction to somebody being bullied by Harry's wife ignited fury. Again, this was reported by Tom Bauer in his book, Revenge. The coverage, including the headline, "Pregnant Duchess Rushed from Marketplace as Crowds Close In," caused massive consternation within Scotland Yard. The Metropolitan Police suggested flying out an officer to ensure she was being properly protected, despite private assurances from Kensington Palace that the incident had nothing to do with security. The Duchess's head of security resigned from the Met a few months later. Why did the Duchess now appear to want to distance herself from UN Women? The reason is not known. In 2015, when she was an actress in Suits, Harry's wife had accepted an invitation to be a UN Women's advocate for women's political participation and leadership, character trait acquisition. But by 2018, she appeared to be less happy to be associated with the group. Her lawyers told The Times in 2021, "This is completely false. The Duchess is a keen supporter of UN Women and has never objected to their branding. Facade management, nullification of threat to control by proxy. The only reason the Duchess was evacuated from the event was due to safety concerns. This was a decision made by her head of security. She met with other leaders from UN Women later in the South Pacific tour." 2 years later, Harry's wife's narrative would once again be at odds with the memories of those who once worked with her. Revision of history. In her famous interview with Oprah Winfrey in March 2021, Harry's wife takes pains to highlight the difference between the Queen and those who surrounded her. In Harry's wife's account, they were the people who refused to help when she was in her hour of greatest need. Victim status, smearing, revision of history. They were the ones who perpetuate falsehoods about her. Victim mentality, smearing, revision of history, blame shifting. Watching Harry's wife described how she considered ending her life in the year after her marriage was an uncomfortable experience. And yet, a succession of perfectly decent people, all of whom believed in Harry's wife and wanted to make it work, came to be so disillusioned that they began to suspect that even her most heartfelt pleas for help were part of a deliberate strategy that had one end in sight: her departure from the royal family. Actually, it was not. Her narcissism does not think that far ahead, but it's understandable that people were mistaken in believing that that's what was happening. In actual fact, her narcissism was dealing with the threat to control as it arose by creating the narrative of a plea for help that was ignored. And then at a later juncture, when looking to leave, utilizes these fabricated events in the past as a justification for the decision that has been made in order to nullify any threat to control posed by someone saying, "Why do you want to go?" So at the time, let us say on January the 5th, her control is threatened. Her narcissism at that time may have caused her to say, "I need help," even though there was no need to. Alternatively, in June, at the point at which she leaves, for instance, her narcissism revises history by looking backwards and revising history to say, "I repeatedly asked for help and none was given," when that never happened. Returning to the article, they believe she wanted to be able to say, "Look how they failed to support me." That's true, but it wasn't a deliberate strategy. Sam Cohen, who had 17 years' experience of working at the palace, would frequently say to Edward Young, the Queen's private secretary, and Clive Alderton, Charles's private secretary, that if all went wrong, the palace needed evidence of the duty of care it had shown to Harry and Harry's wife. The duty of care was crucial. Sam was a broken record with them on that, said a source. "This is about the creation of evidence to defend yourself. Go to the evidence," something I repeatedly explain to people that they should do. But by the time of the Oprah interview, everything that the palace had done to support the couple, including giving them a team that would have done anything to help them succeed, was forgotten. Revision of history. They're painted black. Therefore, the help is obliterated from the record. Instead, Harry's wife was able to point out all the times the institution had failed her. Victim mentality, revision of history, pity play. One of them was when she says she went to the head of HR, where she was given a sympathetic hearing but sent on her way. This was inevitable. HR is there to deal with employee issues, not members of the royal family. Harry's wife would presumably have known that. So what was she doing there? Laying a trail of evidence would be the cynical answer. Again, she's not. What she's doing is, there's a threat to her control, so she complains about it because she's the one that's hard done to. And, irrespective of the fact that HR is the wrong person to go to, she goes to it anyway in order to assert control indirectly over the other threat that has manifested itself. Another former staff member goes even further. Everyone knew that the institution would be judged by her happiness, they say. The mistake they made was thinking that she wanted to be happy. She wanted to be rejected because she was obsessed with that narrative from day one. No, that's not correct. Again, that shows a misunderstanding about a narcissist. She doesn't want to be rejected. She needs the control. And indeed, no narcissist wants to be rejected because that's a threat to control. Instead, she was obsessed with the need for control, although, of course, she doesn't realize that. In view of another insider, one of Harry's wife's concerns was whether she was going to be able to earn money for herself, given her position in the royal family, residual benefit. Although Harry's wife was not making money out of the deals her US agents were negotiating at the time, she did a voiceover for Disney Wildlife documentary in return for a charitable donation, some suspected that in the end she wanted to make money. Correct, it's a residual benefit. And the only way she could do that was by leaving her royal life behind and going back to America. Did Young and Alderton grasp the issue that was confronting them before it was too late? It seems not. When Jason Knorf, the Sussex's then communications secretary, wrote to Simon Case, Prince William's private secretary, making an allegation that Harry's wife had been bullying staff in October 2018, Case passed it on to the head of HR, Samantha Carruthers, who was based at Clarence House. But Clarence House sources have always insisted that it never crossed Alderton's desk. Part of the problem, according to one source, was that everyone in the palace was too genteel and civil. When someone decides not to be civil, they have no idea what to do. They were run over by her and then run over by Harry. The situation was not helped by Harry and Harry's wife's deteriorating relationship with Alderton and Young. As things started to go wrong, a source told royal biographer Robert Lacey, Harry's wife came to perceive Young as the inflexible bureaucratic figure who summed up what was wrong with the Buckingham Palace mentality, and the feeling was mutual. Young really came to dislike Harry's wife's style. Harry was just as dismissive of the two senior courtiers as Harry's wife. He used to send them horrible emails, so rude, demonstrating the influence of his wife upon him. When Harry and Harry's wife went to Canada for their 6-week break in November 2019, their escape plans were already laid amid the greatest secrecy. Harry's wife would not even tell their nanny, Lauren, where they were going. According to one source, she didn't know where they were going until the plane, a private jet, was in the air. Narcissus' use of secrecy. Shortly before the end of the year, Harry's wife confided in a member of her staff that the couple were not coming back. The rest of the team did not find out until they held a meeting at Buckingham Palace at the beginning of January 2020. Lack of emotional empathy, lack of accountability. They found it hard to accept they were being dumped just like that. Some of them were in tears. It was a very loyal team, said one. This, of course, demonstrates the difference between the narrative that Harry's wife has portrayed of people not helping her, being against her, and now this evidence that shows that they tried to help her, but of course flew in the face of her bullying behaviour as a consequence of her ignited fury. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.